Welcome back, everybody, to Dr. Sellers Educate. If this is the first time you've tuned into our YouTube channel, welcome. And if you have returned for another episode, we welcome you back as well. I am Dr. Sellers. I am the owner and founder of Dr. Sellers Educate, and I'm thrilled that you're here as we support you on your journey towards success in passing the CNE Novice, and the CNE clinical exams. You will notice a couple of resources down in our description for this episode. It's going to include our study workbook, as well as the primary resources we recommend that you utilize to close all of your knowledge gaps related to the 8 NLN CNE competencies. There's also information for you if you're taking the CNE Novice or the CNE clinical exam as well, okay? So the other good news we wanted to share is that we are launching our second cohort of CNE in 60 days. That's right, we are wrapping up the first cohort that started in June, and we are hearing great feedback. So we want to continue on this journey with some of you as you focus on achieving your CNE in 60 days. Now, the dates have not been confirmed, but as soon as that information is available, we will let you know. But if you want to go ahead and get on the interest list now, we want to gather that information from you. So you'll see that in the description here, or you can just send over an email to info@drsellerseducate.com. All right. This episode, we're going to be focusing on part 2. Remember, we talked about part 1 a couple of weeks ago. We actually launch a new episode every single week. We keep our content current here on our channel, and you can always review previous episodes here as well. When we look at the content for part 2, using the study workbook, we are focusing on facilitation of learning. For those of you that are not new on this journey, you know that more than a third of the content is related to facilitation of learning. And we want to ensure that you're closing all of those knowledge gaps as we support you every step of the way on your journey. That is our commitment to you. We will support you until you are successful, whether that's the first time or if it takes you more than one time. But one thing's for certain: if you do the work, if you focus on closing your knowledge gaps, if you follow our study plan, we are seeing 90% plus success rate on the exam with the first attempt. Okay, we saw 100% success rate for CNE Novice, and for CNE Clinical, we're about a 98% success rate. And then for the CNE, we're seeing anywhere between 95 to 97% on the first time attempt. With our study workbook, there are a couple of points we want to make. First of all, we designed this workbook based on feedback we heard from you all. We had no desire actually to create another resource because we believe in the resources that are recommended by NLN. We are not affiliated with NLN. We simply have a passion and really commitment to professional development for nurse educators just like you across the country. Our mission is very simple. We want to support every single nurse educator to achieve success on the certification exams that have been published by NLN. We know that professional certification is the mark of distinction for us as nurse educators. So now let's go ahead and talk about part 2. Focusing on facilitation of learning, looking at 4 major elements when we think about this category. Again, this is tied to competency 1 and 2 primarily, but when you take a look and a deeper dive, which we do as part of our live review, and also you're going to see several episodes right here on the channel related to this, and that is going to be the competencies 1 through 4, as well as competencies 5, 6, and 7, and 8 as well. That is where we're going to see an opportunity for us not only to focus on how we integrate teaching strategies that are aligned with the evidence in the literature to support the facilitation of learning, but also how does it correlate with the theories associated with how students learn, specifically how adults learn. How is that going to affect our commitment to lifelong learning for us in the development area as a nurse educator? How do we stay on top of the best teaching strategies, the best evaluation strategies? Well, all of those elements that I just talked about are tied to, believe it or not, 6 to 8 of the competencies that are listed out in the exam blueprint. So if you haven't had a chance yet, you want to go ahead and look for three primary resources. The first one is going to be the CNE Candidate Handbook, CNE Novice or CNE Clinical. If you head over to nln.org, that's where you're going to find these resources. Second resource is Dr. Caputi's review book, second edition. And the third resource is going to be Teaching and Nursing, Billings and Halstead, sixth edition. If you are taking the CNE Clinical, there are additional resources that you want to make available to yourself as you close your gaps. And CNE Novice, these are the same episodes or the same resources that you will utilize as well. All right, so back to our content. When we look at facilitation of learning, first is thinking about the learning styles or preferences. You're going to hear those terms used interchangeably. Well, what does the research, and more importantly, what does NLN expect you to know when we talk about learning styles and preferences? Well, it's very simple. First of all, we must commit to understanding all of the different learning preferences. That's how we first ensure that we're knowledgeable about the content related to each of those learning preferences. VARC is one of the acronyms we commonly see cited in the literature and one that we've learned about. And then we also have Knoll's Adult Learning Theory, as well as Cobb's Experiential Learning Theory. Okay, so when we think about learning preferences, learning styles, and modes and methodology that we use to support the facilitation of learning, we want to incorporate and consider and be knowledgeable about all of these that we have discussed so far. And then we have the three learning domains. And what are they? If you're not familiar, go ahead and pause this video right now. Take a look at Billings and Halstead. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to some content for you. You want to go ahead and look at Billings and Halstead, chapter 14, and that's where you're going to find one of the most important tables related to learning theory that you want to take a look at, which is table 14.1 on pages 249 and 252. That's where you're going to find a lot of great content to help you close the gaps that you may have in this area. And then also Dr. Caputi's review book, Appendix A, is an excellent resource for you. You're going to find both of these tables to include valuable information related to learning theories. Okay, so you're going to find the definition. You're also going to find constructs related to each of these learning theories. And you're also going to find, most importantly, ways that you can really apply and integrate some of these teaching strategies into your classroom to connect with these type of learning theories that will indirectly relate to learning preferences in our student population. All right, so we've talked about the learning domains, or mentioned them at least, Bloom's taxonomy, and then learner development and self-evaluation. Okay, so this is the fourth element that I mentioned a little bit about a second ago. It is, what is our commitment to our professional development as an educator, and how do I ensure that I am knowledgeable about teaching strategies and how I should facilitate learning with my students? A good example that I want to share is with learning circles, okay, or debates. Debates are one of my favorites. I enjoy learning circles as well, but this is going to, think about it, it's going to engage our students in a different way than just the traditional lecture or discussions that we may have with our online students. So can you do learning circles in a virtual setting? Absolutely. It's going to require some technology to be utilized, but you can absolutely incorporate learning circles into the online setting. Debates is a little bit more challenging, right? Because you don't have that live synchronous experience. So for the debate activity, you do have to be in person for that to be facilitated, unless you have a virtual or a synchronous event with your students, even though they may be online. All right, so we're already over on our time, but I do want to go ahead and capture this specific practice test question for you. It's related to authentic case studies that incorporate major elements from the topics of the semester, is associated with which learning theory? If you want to pause the video and come back when you're ready. And if you chose B, that is the correct answer, cognitive learning theory. If you're unsure about why this is the best choice, I would say if you head over to Appendix A, or in looking at chapter 14, specifically table 14.1, that's where you're going to find more details related to each of these learning theories. What do you need to know about them? Well, it's very simple. First is going to be the definition, okay? What does behavioral learning theory mean? The premise is that all behavior is learned and it can be shaped and rewarded. So this is And that's why it's so important in nursing for us to give students feedback about their performance. We want to give them timely feedback, right? So there is a such thing as a recency effect. So we want to ensure we're giving students timely feedback. So second of all, they can adjust those behaviors. They can make different decisions about their nursing practices. And thirdly, we want them to take some time to review the content related to that specific nursing practice and understand the why. Okay, that's how we start to stimulate and really solidify clinical judgment and critical thinking with our students. All right, so in the interest of time, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this specific area, but just remember our framework. The evidence has shown us over the past 5 years, working with nurse educators, both formally and informally, that having 3+ years of experience, using resources and having support is really going to provide that success framework. Okay, these are the concepts for success that you can see here. Dr. Sellers Educate has published. Now, this is not what NLN recommends. All right, so go to NLN website if you want a better understanding of the requirement of the eligibility criteria to apply for the CNE exams. Okay, this is simply based on the nurse educators that we have supported, and this is for the CNE. All right, we are happy that you were able to join us for this episode. So until next time, you see how to reach us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode or at one of our upcoming events. We have live reviews just about every month, and we actually have our in-person review on August the 5th, 2022 here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Reach out to us if you have questions. Until next time, have a great one, everybody.